Hello and welcome back to a continuation of our series on battle maps breakdowns. We've been expanding that into our full dungeons, and I wish to continue from where I left off with Glimmerdeep. Now, I've been showcasing the book that I've been getting most of this content for, and I hope you guys notice that it's always a bit diversified. I always try to use a brand new monster because there are so many, and you never know when your last D&D session is going to be. It just comes out of nowhere. Um, so I always try to make it as memorable and as unique as possible. And I think when I was designing this, I didn't immediately have the concept of the creature I was going to be using, but I had an overall vibe that I was ready for. So I want to welcome you to the series. I hope you guys have been enjoying the other content. This has been the most well received, and I'm hoping that we can kick things off. I hope we can continue in a way where it becomes a good catalog for people to join in, and just see different sorts of battle maps, encounters, creatures that they could use. I haven't delved too much into the mechanics of the creatures. Um, I mean, I could and should, but the videos would become too long. And the original point of these videos was to make something more digestible than the 4 to 5 hour long campaign sessions that we have. The water deep ones are more contained, so maybe 2-3 hours at the most. But I wanted to keep these under 30 minutes, and I kind of failed the mark on the last video, despite how everyone enjoyed Glimmerdeep's sort of introductory area. So if there are mechanics that you are interested in, you can check out the books. You can pick them up, or you can just check them out for free online. You don't have to buy every book, but you should be exposed to them in a way where you can just allow them to give you a lot of creative influence. So you can either borrow them, use them, or homebrew your own. So let's just get into it. I want to discuss that in the first video, I talked about the key themes or words, phrases being rust and blood. Now, when I was designing this one, it was a little different because I'll bring it up here real quick if I can. I wanted to change in color more than anything else. So I started with the sort of core concept of, okay, maybe I should showcase now the richness of Glimmerdeep, of why this mine is so important, and I needed color. And the entrance was red and dull, not too dull, like the red gave it some vibrance, the rust and blood vibe. This one I chose the words, and I'm gonna just read them off for you guys: marble and elemental. So I started off thinking of the blue stone color, and there were some really good uses of it in Inkarnate, like things I could take from, along with colors and stuff like that. So I went with blue, and then gray just fit again. So I kept the stone on the ground gray. I kept the area blue. You're gonna see all of this, but then I started delving into the concept of, if it was a much more rich and vibrant place, what kind of things could be here, not necessarily evil. So I kind of went towards looking for things that were more neutral. And then something hit me that I just wanted it to be like a sort of elemental vibe. I wanted it to be water and earth and fire. I wanted a way to incorporate the elements. I didn't know how, but that's just what came to mind. So I just wrote down marble and elemental. So when I started designing it, I came up with I started coming up with more of the intro map, and then something hit me, and I was wondering if I could find any fey creatures. So I took out Volo's guide to monsters. As I checked the other books too, but it has a lower level CR rating for a lot of creatures. Um, I will always say to take Volo's words with a grain of salt, as well as purchasing his books as they are shorter than most. All right, so I was able to find what I was looking for. So in searching through this book, I was looking for things that could help with the theme. Marble and elemental. It brought me towards sort of thematic, like having there be water, earth. Obviously, it's a cave, but how would I do earth? I did figure that out. But fire and some of the other elements. Lightning was a big thing. I wanted to figure out how to incorporate. But I was searching through the book and I found what I was looking for, because I was looking for some kind of fey creatures that might be able to lend some of their sort of whimsy or color, and I found something that I felt was perfect. Keep in mind, as I read it, it is not fey, but I treated it as something of that spirit, something more mythical, something more high fantasy. So the Flail Snail. A flail snail is a creature of elemental earth that is prized for its multi-hued shell. Hunters might be lulled into a false sense of confidence upon sighting this ponderous, seemingly non-hostile creature. If any other creature large enough to be a threat approaches too close, though, the flail snail unleashes a flash of scintillating light and then attacks with its mace-like tentacles. Trail of treasure. Left undisturbed, the flail snail moves slowly along the ground, consuming everything on the surface, including rocks, sand, and soil, stopping to relish crystal growths and other large mineral deposits. It leaves behind a shimmering trail that quickly solidifies into a thin layer of a nearly transparent substance inedible to the snail. This glassy residue can be harvested and cut to form window panes of varying clearness. It can also be heated and spun into glass objects of other sorts. Some humanoids make a living from trailing flail snails to collect this glass. So, the flail snail, I don't know if you can see that, is a very interesting creature. It is elemental. It has a sort of vibrance to it that I was looking for. And I thought it would be interesting, as I've always tried to do at some point or another. And that's give a sort of moral imperative. A choice whether to destroy something or not. To save someone or not. And the flail snail is at peace in this cave. It is a creature that is neutral. It doesn't really. It's actually unaligned. It doesn't really care about the squabbles of, civilizations, and it sort of is existing in the ecosystem of this Kruthik sort of dungeon lair, this mine that has been taken over by Kruthik. But the Kruthik don't bother it, as they are, one, allowing it to help protect their lair, but two, might not find it all that easy to do that. So I decided to push it a little bit, not in CR or challenge rating, but of importance and significance to the ecosystem of the Underdark. So the Flail Snail, along with other creatures in the Underdark, I created as avatars of light. These creatures are powerful enough to keep the sort of balance of the Underdark's sort of mixed, chaotic, and evil nature at bay. Not to say everything in the Underdark is evil, but they keep that balance of all things in here. And even the creatures themselves do not wish to harm the Flail Snail. It is old, it is powerful, and it gives a sense of scale to the world in the Underdark. Now, I was focused on this creature, and then I wanted to delve a little deeper. Let's see if I can find it without having to go too far. But I think keeping that vibe of elemental was able what brought me to a creature that worked perfectly, and then I continued to search for some kind of like continuation of that theme, and landed on this boy, and I found a Korrid. Korrids are unpredictable, secretive fae with strong ties to earth and stone. Because of their magical hair and their mystical understanding of minerals, they are sought after by treasure hunters, dwarves, and others that desire wealth beyond the earth. Earth fae. Korrids prefer to keep their own company and occasionally consort with creatures of elemental earth, such as Glimmerdeep. A tribe of Korrids gathers weekly to perform ceremonial dances, beating out rhythms on stone with their hooves and clubs. Sorry, my nose is running. In the depths of the material plane, Korrids typically flee from other creatures but become aggressive when they feel insulted or are annoyed by the sounds of mining. Stone sympathy. No one knows the ways of stone and earth better than a Korrid. Korrids can seemingly smell veins of metal or gems. A Korrid on the surface can feel the rise and fall of bedrock under the earth, where caves lie, and underground it knows pathways through the stone for miles. Secret doors that lead through stone are as obvious as windows to a Korrid. Korrids can hurl boulders far larger than it seems they should be able to, shape stone as though it were clay, swim through rock, and summon earth elementals and other creatures. They also gain supernatural strength from standing on the ground. I'm gonna blow my nose. Continuing on. Korrids have hair all over their bodies, but the hair that grows from their head is magical. When cut, it transforms into whatever material was used to cut it. Korrids use iron shears to cut lengths of their hair, then weave the strands together to create iron ropes that they can manipulate, animating them to bind or snake around creatures and objects. Korrids take great pride in their hair, and equally great offense at any who attempts to cut it without permission. Now, this is a Korrid. These creatures themselves, man, I'm having a lot of anxiety about my appearance right now in this video. This is anxiety. So that's a Korrid, and that's a Flail Snail. We have two elementals mixed with some Fey ancestry to give a little bit of life to what we're working on. Now, I've talked a bit about all of that. I'm gonna jump right into the map. Welcome to our second level of Glimmerdeep, Marble and Elemental. It is a bit... it's a lot. I remember when I finished this, I was so proud of how it came out and how it was run. It's a bit iffy. Because when you get something in your head as a DM and you put a lot of work into it, you might get stuck with this concept that that the players are gonna play it a specific way, that they're gonna understand some of your nuances, tones, and ideas, but that can shift very easily. Players mishear things. Players have their own interpretations, and sometimes, and I don't mean to be harsh, but sometimes players just don't care. You gotta remember that when you're designing something as a DM, there's a moment where you have to have a little bit of disconnect. Now, I don't mean don't care about what you make. Put the time in, put the effort, make it the way you want it to be. But sometimes players, they don't understand the kind of attachment you can have to some of this, especially when it comes to the creatures. Not saying that I didn't expect these creatures to die. I just more of expected a little more of a sort of delving into the histories and lores of potential these potential creatures. Um, so I'll jump into it from the beginning. I knew I wanted this to have the same theme of marble and elemental. So here at the entrance, I gave a little bit of in sort of like foreshadowing. There was a massive snail shell that has been long fossilized. There is some color to the gray. There's this bioluminescent tree that has these bulbs of blue dim light coming from it. As they turn the corner, there's two paths. One to this sort of blue, clean water, but there's these like petrified in a way, like white trees. And it was meant to be, like I said, a change in color, something to delve into. This was a mix of the blue water, the water having the water elemental feel, but there was lightning eels in this pool. They never actually went through it. It happens. I put these big blue flowers that they could grab onto, and I really hoped. I didn't know exactly what they would be used for, but in general, I knew I wanted something that could be attainable. Adding to the concept, I always try to add in of like treats and interactable terrain. So there's these two big blue flowers. I did just put a shell here just for the hell of it, but this was the introduction to there being more color in and maybe potential delving into like not just the gray world of the Underdark. As we move down here, this was where the Flail Snail was, and she was a powerful creature slumbering amongst her sort of her treasure hoard. Just all of these crystals she sort of like expelled from her or has already knocked off the wall. Crystals can be pretty fragile, depending. They're not like actual gemstones of diamonds and stuff. Uh, these were a bit more fragile, um, and it's just added vibrance to the area, as well as showcasing the majesty of the Flail Snail. Now, when they approached this area, the creature wasn't hostile, and they didn't roll high enough to detect the creature either. It stayed dormant, sleeping, and uncaring that people were coming towards her side of the dungeon. But then they started pulling crystals off the wall, and that was a no-no. So she attacked them, and once she realized she was about to kill them, she backed off and stopped and retreated back into her area. And that was the problem. Players sometimes just are happy to stop getting their asses kicked and need to like sort of prove themselves. And it's a weird thing because in the moment I knew I was a little annoyed, but I wasn't angry, nor was I really like, it didn't hurt me like that. It was just a reminder as a DM that sometimes, let me put it this way. I created a moral imperative to find out whether they would do the right or wrong thing. And based on the lore I had created, let me move the map up like this a little more. They decided to destroy Avatar of Light after it had showed them mercy and after it had retreated. Out of pettiness or sense of pride, or even maybe the fact that they just didn't really pay attention that much, they decided to destroy it anyway. One of them is a cleric of light, and one is a paladin. So there were some consequences around the corner for them in the future. It would curse them for destroying such a holy creature. Additionally, while two of them were sort of meant to be aligned with good, it sort of put a stink on them, and something we would have to work on for the sort of campaign to come. So after we got through that, the lair of the Flail Snail, there were some treasures we had lined up for them to grab. I think maybe I should save some of these mechanics for the breakdown when I show the tokens on the map, but I don't think I need to in this video, but we'll see. They destroyed the Flail Snail and continued on. There was an area they never went to up here, and there was an area that they did go through here. They decided to hop across this sort of leak of oil and tar. Just this pool that is accumulated probably from the constant sort of flowing of maybe a break, and oil started leaking from the surface or the sides, or this was just tar left over from something. But regardless, there was these platforms they could jump across, get to the other side. Nothing harmful, but they could, get them sticky and covered in oil for future fights, potentially. They found some ledgers, they found some casks of oil, they found, just a regular rest pit for a short rest. They used it anyway, I think, for just a short rest in general. Then they grabbed onto some of the stuff here and then descended down. After they destroyed the Flail Snail, I had them have an interaction with the Korrid, even though they didn't know who he was. They heard his voice down the hall, and he said to leave him the shell, and he would give them safe passage. Not really his to give, but he hated the Flail Snail, and it wasn't necessarily his enemy, but he was going to play it off as such, as hating the creature. He would then take the shell for himself and make it not only a treasure, but a decorative, honorary, memorial for the creature. He had his own area in the dungeon that we never went to, which was weird. It's always weird when they don't find these places that you develop, especially one that has such story. This area was going to be where he resided, and it was a mix because it was such a small area of the map, and I designed it after making this large segmentation from here, and I was like, it's not big enough to design something, and I was like, no, we're going to take some time, we're going to focus in on the space, the theme. I created this sort of hand that was coming out from underneath the ground, just sort of like the bones of the earth kind of thing. We had these big separation boulders that showed why the Flail Snail never came this way, and it was difficult for the Kruthik maybe to attack the Korrid, nor that, not that they would, but if they wanted to. Additionally, we had some big stones up here, and he would just start lobbing them if he needed to, whipping some of them with his hair made of steel. But I had a combat encounter ready if needed. Additionally, I had these sort of gargoyle-like statues in case he wanted to turn them into Galeb doors, or sorry, my face is itching. And I'm just trying to get through it. This was a good map. This alone. This story was nice. The story of the Flail Snail was good. This water, I had the concept of if they ever got too covered in oil, they would be able to wash it off in this pool. There were some electric eels in there, but they never touched it, so I never got to that point where I either put the electric eels in or out. I think if they were already suffering too much damage and stuff, I would not put the electric eels in there. So it was just there. Sometimes you need these kind of designs, like I've mentioned before, of just in case just in case like you don't know what they would want to use it for. Or even let's say they decided, hey, is there a bottom to this? Is there underground? Is that blue tint there like an open cave and I can swim under? And that's when, as a DM, you can say yes or no. Um, and you could have anything down there. So going towards the end, this dungeon is a little bit simpler than the previous one, the previous level, because it had more neutral and optional bosses. So I had one definitive one down here, which leads to the actual chamber of the Kruthik Hive Lord. Now this is where they're trying to get to. So we already covered that if they were to jump into here and fall, they would get covered in oil. So I had fire beetles in here. Not a lot. I think I had 3 or 4, maybe 3 medium and 1 large one. And it was interesting because I had set up the oil concept. And what I was going to do is if they were covered in oil, just hit them with a little bit more damage or just catch them on fire. So I think only one of them ended up getting stuck into oil down here, and then a second person grabbed one of them and got him out, which also put him in oil. They weren't hard creatures to deal with. They had some hit points. They were protecting these eggs. I had even the eggs have like a chance to maybe come to life, and they would be like Kruthik creatures, and if they cried, then the Kruthiks would start swarming. I don't think, yeah, we didn't get to that part. But overall, it became a good end to this, as we had already the water elements, the earth elements, we had electricity, and well, the concept of electricity. So we needed fire, and I had these sort of like scorched marks that would just insinuate that that was what was coming. They ended up taking a trophy from the mandible of one of these fire beetles that just recently, many months later, has been used to create a magic item, which I find very, I like it. It took them a while to get to a place where they could do this, and I'm very happy that we got there. And I hope that there's a count on how many times I have scratched my face, but I'm going to take a moment just to blow my nose one more time before we wrap things up. Be right back. Alright, so let's try to start wrapping things up. I'm going to go a little more over this map before we continue to where the tokens were. There's not much more to cover, but what I want to say is when designing this, I had to sort of gauge the strength level. The Flail Snail for me had 150 hit points, I believe. And it had a high AC. It could deflect spells. It was casting magic missile, so it was pumping out a lot of damage. So welcome to the continuation. I was going to discuss a bit more. So welcome to Glimmerdeep level 2 with the tokens. I was going to talk a bit more about stuff, but then I realized I was talking about the mechanics, and I might as well just have some of the tokens on the map for you guys. So as I said, this was meant to be a little different. There was not a lot of creatures or encounters that were like meant like staples. These were optional, depending on how things went. So the Flail Snail was on its own as its own beefcake, and I had her sort of just idly staying here and protecting her area. They attacked after, well, she attacked them for intruding. They were getting mollywopped. Then she retreated and went to her corner. They took it as an opportunity and destroyed her. Foolish of her to show mercy. So yeah, we had that done, and then they kind of went this way. Now, I had, like I mentioned, the Gale of Dur and sort of Chord encounter set here. He was going to speak to them, give them lore, offer them treasures, potentially even treasures if he, if they, you know, destroyed the Flail Snail and gave him the shell, but they had already done it by themselves. So there's nothing really nothing really he had for the they had of worth to give him. There were still opportunities for them to have a conversation with him, especially after they heard from his voice, had that conversation with him in the darkness. When they came here, they would have recognized the voice and then could have spoken that way, but they never even came to this area, so it is what it is. If you were to run any of this, I would say that I wouldn't take back necessarily the Flail Snail retreating and showing mercy. It is an avatar of light, as I have created in my world. You may choose to not have it be that thing. It is unaligned naturally. It's got some really good stats. It could easily have just TPK'd my party, by the way. So I'd be careful of how you use it and at what level. They were about 5th level, I would say, when this happened. 4th or 5th, something like that. So I don't know why I started talking a little bit louder there, but I would just be careful. Just take a look at, the stat block of the creature. Once again, I had a rest area, so we had a combat encounter designed for here in case it wanted to travel and follow them all the way around and chase them here, and then here it couldn't pursue them, and here it couldn't pursue them, and this was a cliff back down to that area, so it wouldn't pursue them there. So it kind of just controlled this area. But after destroying it, they had free reign. So 150 hit points, 16 health. It had about 10 movement. I think I ended up just giving it 15 anyway, because sometimes restraining movement of a creature against a party size of 5 is a bit like yeah, it was a great creature to run. Would do it again. They moved on here. They made their saves to get across this. They descended down. Some of them got hit into the Ichor, and I do remember that some of the Kruthik did spawn. This was supposed to be 10, but ended up spawning during the battle. I had these adult Kruthiks ready on the side in case I needed them, in case the young Kruthik started just screaming out for help and created a call to arms. There was 3 giant fire beetles, and like I did with the carrion crawlers, I made one just a large one where I tripled its health. I think I gave it a little bit more damage, and overall the combat encounters went okay. They only had a combat encounter with the Flail Snail. They had a combat encounter with the giant beetle, and they missed out on some of the opportunities to either fight or even socially interact with the Korin. What I would say is, when you design this, you should keep in mind, like I said earlier, sometimes things are not going to go as planned. They're not going to understand it from your perspective. So players aren't always going to see things the way as you envision them in your head. That doesn't necessarily mean your descriptions are bad. Your descriptions, as you reiterate them for your players for the first time, are meant to cement how you see the game. Your explanations also cement how you feel, but they may not translate well to your players. Your players may very well just go the opposite direction. You may just say, oh, and the Flail Snail starts to retreat, like move backwards, and the light goes down, and now all of you are free from the effects. And to you, you are clearly stating that it is done with this fight. To them, they're like, now's our fucking chance. The DM's giving us an opportunity to kill this fucker, and they go for it. Sorry with the language. But you shouldn't feel hurt. It can be easy to feel hurt because you have now invested too much stock. I'm sorry, I'm rubbing my nose. We're almost done. Home stretch. You may feel, and I'm not crying from this. It's really the season of dust and allergies. It is easy to feel hurt. You shouldn't feel hurt. You should still feel connection to what you're working on. You should feel connection to the map. You should feel connection to the lore. You should feel passionate about the creatures you're creating. Because overall, this may be the only moment you see them. To your players, and in a lot of sort of those online games that you'll get into, people may play a lot and they're throwing character build out the ass, and they're playing constantly. So they're just go to the next thing, go to the next thing, go to the next thing, and that might discourage you when designing a multi-level dungeon where you're putting so much effort and then you feel like they burn through it too fast, or they're just skipping to the next area, or they're not regarding any of your story and stuff. Take a step and realize that they are approaching it from a totally different perspective than you. It's okay for them to sometimes treat it that way. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying for giving them leniency to shit on or disregard or water down your content. You should start to figure out the difference between someone who is sort of either trying to weaken or belittle what you work on, or disregard the importance of it, with someone who just doesn't understand. It can be very difficult either way, but you need to separate them and just start to learn from it. Learn from your players, what sort of piques their interest, what they get attached to, and then in regards to this, in regards to them destroying the Flail Snail, I knew there would be a consequence. And to me, it needed to be one that showed the importance of understanding what is good and what is evil and what is chaotic or a beast. But it was not my intention to punish them because I personally wanted them to suffer. The curse that they would be given was meant to stain them in the eyes of creatures that could see the difference between good and evil. And when they were to meet these creatures, those creatures very specifically would have been like, oh, you are definitely a piece of shit. And just have this stink about them. When they met the king of the Hollow, and he saw them before he was comfortable with dealing with them, and then he realized, oh no, these aren't just adventurers. These people are willing or unable to distinguish from right and wrong. And he was like, oh no, this is not a good sign. And I need to distance myself from them, lest another creature like myself might sort of associate myself with them. And that's when things started to get real awkward, because he was to them a sort of chaotic, neutral, like rogue king, like king of the thieves. And if he doesn't want to deal with them, then they might have to figure something out. So my punishment was not like kill them. It wasn't cause some debilitating curse where they would all have -2 to saving throws, or they would start getting attacked all the time by creatures. No, it was more of a social thing that sort of highlighted the importance of knowing what is good and evil. Now that I think I cemented well. I had a vision for all of them. The paladin was given a charge of taking the spawn, the child of the Flail Snail, to someone who could protect it and nurture it into becoming the next avatar of light in the Underdark. Something he took very seriously. I also gave one of them a vision that they needed to destroy the Flail Snail spawn, putting them at odds with each other, so they would have to talk this out. So they would have to figure out, is this right? Is this wrong? Is it worth it? And from there, that's when things started to wake them up to this concept of role playing and figuring the good and evil aspect out. So overall, it went well. Um, I spent a lot of time talking about the moral imperative and the flavor and the world of it. But overall, it was fun. The combat with the snail was great. I wish we did have an interaction with the Korid and the Gale of Dur. If you were to run it, um, you can have it be a sort of hostile approach or social. It's up to you. You can change out these monsters. You can put a lot of weird things in here. You could even make this area have the electric eels or some kind of water creature, Kuatoa or something. You could even have a monster in this area. There was a lot of room for me to showcase the potential encounters one could have, and I think I was happy with what I settled on. They defeated the giant fire beetles handsomely. They took some good damage, as you can see here, from the fire and whatnot. They didn't startle the adult Kruthiks and were able to make it towards the Hive Lord. So yeah, that's all I have time for. I'm really getting raw, scratching my nose from all these allergies and dust, and I literally have to get to work very soon. But I really wanted to go over this video because I'm trying to stay in the motion of making content for the channel. I enjoy making this kind of content, and it's really relevant for me to get not relevant, it's very important for me to get across this different concept that sometimes you're gonna make something big and spectacular in your head, and then in the middle of it, like, the players just don't read the room well, from your perspective. Not that they didn't read the room well, but you just gotta sort of adapt, not take it too personal. And then if you do distinguish that that they are sort of doing it on purpose, that they are disregarding your lore or consequences or cheapening anything, then you can hit them with either in-game or sort of separate consequences, making things a little more difficult, or show them the error of their ways in some capacity. I think I did well with the curse. I think it motivated them to get rid of it and sort of interact with one another about the moving forward. But I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned, because our next episode will be the finale of Glimmerdeep. We will be going into the chamber of the Hive Lord, and it is probably one of the most menacing and coolest places that I had designed up to that point. I'm very happy with how it came out, much like all of Glimmerdeep, and I'm looking forward to showing you how it went. And because it went a bit faster than I expected, I want to showcase you the full mechanics of what I decided it would be if I felt they had properly rested. They hadn't properly rested, so I didn't want to put it to a 10, which was my original goal. But I think it was still satisfying the way it was. I would redo it a little differently had they rested. I don't know why they chose to just go for broke while they were so low on hit points and just face off against the Kruthik Hive Lord. So I maybe nerfed it a little bit, where they were able to survive. I don't recommend doing that in the future. I'll leave that for the next video, but thank you guys for watching. Please check out all the other content. Showing your support with a like, comment, or even questions really motivates me to keep pushing this content forward. Check out our Out of the Abyss VODs. Our Waterdeep heist game is just hilarious at this point. And check out some of the music and other stuff, the shorts that are bringing some of you in. I feel like a dancing monkey at times, but it's bringing more people to the channel and keeping people around to see that we have some good stuff here. So I'll see you guys in the next